Hi there, Jean Greer here at Stylish Fireplaces. Today I want to talk about how high you should mount your fireplace. It's a question we get asked a lot in our showroom and when we're working with people to design a fireplace wall. And it's a question that doesn't have one universal answer. And so I'm standing here with various styles of fireplaces at various heights to give a little demonstration on what we suggest for the appropriate height of a fireplace. Once upon a time, the hearth and the fireplace was about heating the house and cooking. And obviously that's not the case any longer for the vast majority of us. And we're putting in a fireplace as a focal feature, as a decorative element. We may or may not want some heat from it, but we have a lot more options when we think about gas and electric fireplaces. So let's talk a little bit about what's appropriate for your home. So behind me you see some traditional shaped fireplaces which have slightly different set of rules or guidelines than the linear style fireplaces that we have here. By far we sell more linear fireplaces these days, but I do want to cover both because there is some overlap, but there are some differences as well. So obviously for the traditionalists, if you've got a square shaped fireplace, you like the traditional look, your firebox is going to typically be closer to the floor than we might put a linear fireplace. So I've got one here right at floor level. You could certainly raise that up a few inches, and I think everybody's familiar with traditional wood-burning fireplaces where there's a raised hearth to catch any sparks from the fire, supposedly. And we can still get that look with electric and have a raised hearth, say 9 to 12 inches off the floor. But typically a traditional firebox is going to sit much closer to the floor, if not at the floor. There is no physical reason for this to be at floor level with electric. There are no clearance issues. This does not need to sit on the floor. It could certainly be raised up. There's no physical or clearance reasons for it to be one way or the other. It's purely your own visual preferences. Now this traditional firebox is higher off the floor. It's actually around 3 feet off the floor to the bottom of the fireplace. And I'm comfortable with this height. As I stand here, I can still look down at the flames, which is how an electric flame, and I would say even gas flames, are going to look their best if I'm looking down at the flame, not up at it. I'm getting the full effect of the ember bed underneath the flames and underneath the media, and I'm still being able to see the fire. And yeah, I think even in the video, you can see how much better I can see the flames on the bottom fireplace as opposed to the top one. But as I stand here, I can certainly see those flames easily. The reason we might raise a traditional fire this far off the floor might be, for instance, in a bedroom where everything needs to be a little higher than it might be in a sitting area. Because if you've noticed, mattresses these days are so deep, and if you're sitting on the top of your mattress on your bed and wanting to see a fireplace and a TV at the end of the bed, the fire needs to be up higher than it would be if you were sitting down in a chair. So we do break some of those rules in bedroom settings where we want to be able to see the fireplace beyond the end of the bed, and the TV needs to be at a higher level so that we can see it comfortably from the top of that very high mattress. So I could certainly see, in the showroom we do it for the reasons of trying to use as much of our vertical space as possible to show more samples. But we could mount a traditional fire at this height. It's unusual, but there are exceptions. The other nice place that I've seen a traditional fire raised off of the floor a good 3 feet is in some kitchens, especially in very traditional homes. In older homes, you'll actually see the wood-burning fire was raised up so that it was at a more convenient height, and it certainly gets it above table height, so that if you're looking beyond a dining table, you're able to see the fire. And so there are some situations where I might put a small insert like this a little higher off the floor, just because it's where I want to see. It's in my line of sight as I'm standing in the kitchen working, and certainly in bedrooms. So those are a couple of exceptions where we would bring a traditional fire this far off the floor, 3 feet to the bottom. Otherwise, they're going to tend to sit closer to the floor and they're going to make sense down at that level, usually not more than 12 inches off the floor. But again, there are exceptions and there are no clearance reasons why you can't put it a little higher up. When we look at linear fires, which as I say are by far our more popular style in our area, and because of the TVs that people are putting above, we do sell a lot more of these stretched out linear style fireplaces. They have a different, slightly different set of rules or guidelines as far as the height goes. First of all, we generally don't like to see these linear fires any closer to the floor than 12 inches. The reason being is their shape just doesn't lend itself to be sitting at floor level. What is it doing way down there? It's not very tall. Just aesthetically, it looks better if we pick these ones up off the floor. And honestly, if you're sitting down and you've got furniture between you and the fireplace, if this very low profile fire is too low to the floor, you won't even see it beyond your ottoman or coffee table. So there are some practical reasons, but they just look best at least 12 inches off the floor. And the other consideration is, and I've talked about this in a separate video, but if there's a TV going above, we want to make sure the TV isn't too high. So we're not going to pull this way off the floor. But so with the linear fireplaces, the height depends a lot on what we're doing above the fireplace. If there's a TV or a nice piece of art going above, I'm going to have the bottom of the linear fireplace 12 to 18 inches off the floor max. If I go much higher than that and I want a little bit of space between the fire and the TV or the piece of art, I'm going to start to push those items at the top up a little too high for comfortable viewing. And so 12 to 18 inches off the floor, 12 to 16 really. This one is 16 inches off the floor at the bottom here. That is the ideal height if I'm putting a TV above or a nice piece of art. Having said that, if you are not putting a TV there, if it's purely a focal feature, possibly next to a dining area, possibly in an area where people are standing up as I am, walking through the space as in a lobby or a corridor, and it's purely a focal feature and it is the feature on the wall, we will absolutely pull the bottom of this fireplace up to 36 to 42 inches off the floor. And it will look amazing at that height because as I'm standing, I'm still looking down at the flames. I'm not worried about putting something above it and not having enough space for that or viewing something above it. It really holds the wall at that height. And in a dining area, 36 inches would be the minimum height off the floor if you want to see it above the table and the chairs that are sitting next to the fireplace. So absolutely pull these up to a height of 36 inches from the floor to the bottom of the fireplace if nothing is going above it and you really want a stunning focal piece. And that height would also allow you to put a nice console table below the fireplace. If it were a corridor or an entryway, you could create a whole different type of focal point by pulling the fireplace up off the floor. This fireplace, I just want to point out, is about 56 inches off the floor. It is fine in my showroom, but again, we're trying to use our vertical height here to show somebody what a 60-inch unit looks like compared to a 74-inch unit. We're trying to use our vertical space. I would never put a fireplace this high off the floor in a real situation in somebody's home, even in a commercial installation. It's too high. I'm fairly tall, so I can look down at these flames, but so many people are not going to get the full effect of this fire if it's sitting at 56 inches off the floor. It's purely something we do in the showroom, and I'm glad it's here because I can point out to you, this isn't a great height. So if you're doing this at home, you want to pull this down. This is too high for practical use in a real setting. It's fine in our showroom. And we have so many of this model on display at the proper height that we can get away with it in here, but please don't do this in your settings, in the lobbies, in your home. It's much too high to really enjoy the flames. And imagine if I'm sitting down, I'm truly going to miss the majority of the effect here, because I'm just going to be looking up at the backdrop, and I'm not going to see the flames or the glowing coals or anything about the fireplace. So those are my tips for how high to mount the fireplace. There are no hard and fast rules. There are no physical clearance issues that will determine how high it is. It's simply personal preference, and it has to relate to the other things that are going on around the fireplace on your wall. But it's a good place to start with some really good general rules that we've gleaned from experience. This is the sort of information you can find at stylishfireplaces.ca. On our blog, we have a blog post twice a month, and we answer frequently asked questions like this. And you can also get that information in other videos that we've put on our YouTube channel. So hope to see you at stylishfireplaces.ca.